and welcome back to round 5 of the Maia Chess Open. I just finished my game and I cannot hide my emotions, guys. I'm so happy I beat an international master, and not just some international master. This is my highest rated win so far in classical. My opponent was 2458 rated, and I have never beaten anyone higher than this rating in classical over the board chess. What a game it was. I was playing with the white pieces and I was ready to play move e4. So I prepared all morning against a Sicilian, and I was very skeptical whether my opponent would actually go for Sicilian. I checked what he also tends to play, but a lot of those games where he plays a different opening is happening in Title Tuesday games. So that's why I kind of neglected all of this. And then I get hit with my own opening, the French. I could not believe it. I thought, what is the possible reason to play the French against me? Well, I guess you can argue that because so after d4, d5, I usually take on d5. That's like the majority of my games. So you can argue that I have absolutely no idea how to play against the French, which makes sense because there's a reason why I play the French, right? Myself with the black pieces. But anyway, I thought, okay, I want to put up a bigger challenge for my opponent than just taking on d5, and also playing this against a stronger player. Usually in those very symmetrical positions, the stronger player wins anyway. And I was not really willing to go for such simplifications early on, so I thought, I'm going to play e5. I've had really horrible games recently against advanced variation, so why not use my opponent's resources against my own opening? The opponents that I've been facing, they've been playing some lines against me that I really dislike, so I'm trying to use that now in my own game. Anyway, c5 was played, c3, knight c6, knight f3, bishop d7, all normal developing moves, and here I went for the move bishop e2. There's many other setups possible. There's a3, oh, not a4, a3, bishop to d3 instead, but I chose for bishop e2 because as far as I could remember, this is where, one of those lines where it gets tricky. Rook c8, so my opponent didn't play the move queen b6, which I usually play, and there's also knight g2 e7, but instead rook c8, and here I spent 15 minutes to figure out what to do because I have no experience playing this with the white pieces. I don't know what to do here, and I did not remember very well anymore what my opponents, when I would be playing with black pieces, would play against me, torturing me, because they would have some heavy prep, and I didn't look at those lines carefully because nobody really plays the French against me. Like the chances of someone playing the French against me is just very small, so I haven't really looked into it properly. But I went for knight a3. So I faced Maia Open in a tournament where she played this against my French, and it was really annoying. And that's why I figured that I want to use similar ideas because I completely messed up and things got very tricky there. C takes d4 is what my opponent played, c takes d4, because it's logical, as you'd want to keep the tension in the center because of the knight not being able to develop to c3. But now that the knight has gone to a3, it's not coming to c3 anymore. So that's why black can take now on d4. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, now the square c3 is free, but the knight does not want to go there at all. Maybe later, but usually the idea behind knight a3 is to play knight to c2. But here my opponent went for bishop takes a3, b takes a3, and I was pretty happy about this. Well, happy. I have the pair of bishops, and it is really difficult for black to find a good plan on the queen side because things are pretty difficult there. I have a pretty solid defense there, and my opponent, the pieces of my opponent, they're like all ready to attack on the queen side, but as you will see in the game, it was not so easy actually. So knight g7 was played, rook b1, I thought let's attack that pawn on b7, because if b6, then a lot of pieces will be struggling to join any sort of attack on the queen side. Knight a5 was played, and here I thought, let's go for Harry, h4. I don't know, the most common sense type of move is short castle. It makes the most sense, but I thought if I play short castle, then I'm just waiting for my opponent to attack on the queen side. I have to do something. So I went for Harry to h4, b6 was played. I was a bit surprised by this move. I wasn't entirely sure. Perhaps my opponent really wanted to play knight to c4. So since the knight was defending that pawn on b7, he wanted to release the knight from a5. But I thought it was not necessary. I didn't really know what to think of this. I thought in the worst case you're able to play bishop c6, and I guess it's just really difficult to put the pieces in the right spots. I thought there was a better way, maybe starting with a6 and then b5 and then knight c4. But I guess b6 also works. I just didn't really like this move for my opponent because it feels like it's limiting this queen on d8 quite a bit. That arrow's not supposed to be there. I went for h5. And of course my opponent plays h6. If my opponent allows h6, then it is becoming really a disaster on the dark squares. Let's say my opponent would play any move, let's say queen c7, then h6 and g6, and look at this hole in the king side. That's just permanently weak, and you will not survive this, especially because black doesn't have the dark square bishop anymore. There's no bishop to defend the dark squares anymore. So that's why black cannot afford this and played h6. Here I went for g4. Now, the computer is not happy about this move, but I know better than that. I think we have to go all out here. We don't have nothing to lose. I mean, we do, but I didn't really see any other idea, honestly. So I did consider rook h3, rook g3 to attack the pawn on g7, but after knight f5, I was not entirely sure how to proceed here. And I thought I have to push the g-pawn, and then maybe I can open the g-file, put a rook there. Somehow there must be something. The position on the king side becomes very weak for my opponent, so I thought maybe I can build on that. So that's why I played g4. Bishop c6 was played with the idea to slowly activate the pieces, queen d7, bishop a4, and I believe my opponent wanted to go for queen c6, bishop c2. So I think that was the idea, to activate the pieces this way, or maybe just involve the queen on c2 altogether at first. So I went for bishop to d3, so I'm preparing to play queen e2 and giving my queen some space. Queen to d7, and now queen e2. I thought, why not? I really wanted to play g5, but I couldn't really justify that. I thought, let's just try to centralize our queen, make sure that after bishop a4, that we don't get hit by bishop a4. And yeah, for some reason, I just wanted to play queen e2 to just put the queen on the front, in front of the king, and in case the e-file opens somehow, that my queen is ready to attack there. And I guess it's also a flexible move. Also, it stops any sort of, I mean, knight c4 is still possible, but it kind of discourages these kind of moves, you know, a little bit. It helps in some way. It helps in some way. My opponent went for bishop a4, and here I went for g5 because I thought, if I don't play g5, I see that the top engine move is short castles, which is crazy. Like, why would you play short castle in this position? Like, that's completely insane. I mean, I know that white will not get checkmated there, but it's just completely insane. g5 is the idea, right? So we go for it. I was really hesitating a lot, and I was spending quite some time in these moves to figure out if I really want to play g5 or not. But I thought now is the time. And the reason why is because I calculated that after knight f5, which is the logical move, I thought that this move was going to be played to defend everything and control this square, which is really strong. I don't want to take on f5 altogether because my light squared bishop is very important. I don't want to allow this rook to enter here. I thought that was definitely not something I could just allow. So that's why I don't want to take. Instead, g takes h6 is what I went for, g takes h6. And here I went for the cool move. I think it's cool. Knight h4. I thought it was amazing. I don't know what the engine is on about here, but I thought this was brilliant because I thought my knight is useless on f3 anyway. It's not doing anything. It's in the way. And yes, it's defending the pawn on d4. It's doing something, but I want it to be gone. If I could remove it now, or well, if I could trade it for the knight on f5, it would be amazing. So then this idea appeared to play knight h4 to get rid of that knight, and then my queen wants to go to g4 and g7 and attack that rook and either win the rook or win the pawn on h6 and push the h-pawn. So that is the idea. And the computer doesn't like this because there's one line which is great for black. Knight takes d4, I play queen g4, and as you can see, the arrows already pointing it out, bishop c2 was the only move to stay alive in this game. Well, stay alive is maybe a bit too much. It was the best move by far, and it's just completely insane. I did consider this move. Actually, I think I did consider, because the thing is that after bishop c2, queen takes d4, there's bishop takes b1. And if I take on b1, there's rook takes c1 check. I lose almost everything. I lose all the pieces basically. So tactically this works. The knight is not hanging. And then the question is, okay, what about queen g7? Is that scary? Well, I think I was going to play queen g7 here to attack that rook, so I'm not afraid of bishop takes b1, because then I give a check on h8, and I think this must be winning somehow. And this must be winning. I take the pawn h6 on the next turn. So I thought that's why this is completely fine. But here there are a couple of moves which just don't make any sense. Apparently, if we move the queen anywhere, it's fine for black, because the king can run to d7 and everything is fine. Yeah, I don't think that's human. So I'm not surprised that my opponent didn't play this move whatsoever. I also didn't really think this was working at all. My opponent went for the more natural move, knight to c2 check. I thought this was very logical. I went for king f1, and here my opponent went for king d8. And I was actually a bit sad about this because I didn't quite expect this move. Or well, I thought that this move was not really possible because of the bishop takes h6 tactic. But my opponent went for it anyway, and when my opponent played it, I thought, oh, this is tricky actually. I'm not so sure if, I can still win this, because the king is running away. If the king is running away, it goes to b8, it's safe there. So yeah, anyway, bishop takes h6, I went for it anyway, and it turns out it's a brilliant move. So that's amazing. And I did consider the move bishop a6 here to attack the rook, and I was trying to figure out if it's beneficial for me to attack the rook first and try to move it to a different square, which could be very disadvantageous. Yeah, I think that's the word for black. But turns out it's not that great. It's losing the advantage a little bit, so that's why the reason why I didn't go for bishop a6 is because I couldn't really justify that. Let's say after rook c5, I just didn't really like that my opponent was creating this solid position and my bishop is kind of stranded here. I thought this was unnecessary to allow, so I went for bishop takes h6 directly, and my opponent went for knight takes a3. And I saw this, and I was calculating this, and I didn't like this actually because my rook is under attack, and I couldn't really figure out what the best way is to proceed. Turns out rook c1 is the best move, which makes a lot of sense in hindsight, because remember, my bishop is not hanging. After rook takes h6, there's queen g5 check, and I'm just picking up the rook on the next move. But for some reason, I didn't want to play rook c1. I thought it was too slow, and I did consider it, but yeah, I'm not sure. I just didn't really like this. I guess I just wanted to be more direct for some reason, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense that this is also winning because h6 isn't coming, queen g7, and the pawn is just moving forward real fast. So yeah, I went for bishop g7. I went for bishop g7, attacking the rook, and my opponent went for king c7. It's actually crazy that from this move onwards, there are a total of 5 misses. It's like 2 patzers playing or something. I think it's too harsh. I think the computer is way too harsh. I feel like it's, I don't know. Anyway, king c7 was played, and I was really surprised actually. I thought knight takes b1 is going to be played, bishop takes h8, and I thought this was still pretty good for me because I give a check on f6, and then h6, h7, and the pawn runs. So yeah, I guess maybe I couldn't really figure out a nice defense for black. So I guess this is the reason why my opponent didn't go for knight takes b1. But I guess king c7 is not really helping either. Once again, I have to rook c1 check, and I did consider it, of course. But for some reason, I didn't go for it, thinking that after rook takes c8, I'm not winning material anymore. But I can just push the pawn, h-pawn, and win, right? So yeah, I'm not sure why I didn't go for this. I guess I just wanted to take the rook right away. And I knew that knight takes b1 is not a move I'm afraid of, similarly to that other line that I just showed, because I'm just going to move my bishop after knight takes b1. Let me put it on the board. Knight takes b1, I thought bishop f6, and then I'm just pushing the h pawn, and that pawn is really difficult to stop. So that's why I thought this was just simply has to be winning. Rook takes h8 is what my opponent went for, and this was really surprising to me because my opponent is accepting the loss of material while I still have an h pawn that is ready to maybe not promote yet, but it will get to h7 very easily. So yeah, I was really surprised by this. Rook c1 check, I simply save my rook, king b7, and these three pieces, even though they're kind of working together there, they're not really doing much. I'm just simply winning this game because the pieces are completely misplaced there, and my pawn on h5 is just running and almost no one is there to stop it. So I went for knight f3 now because I want to move the pawn to h6. I'm clearing the space for my rook here, and at the same time this knight is defending the pawn on e5, so this is like amazing, right? This is like very helpful because my opponent wants to play moves such as knight c4 to attack that pawn and try to create some counterplay. Bishop b5 is what my opponent went for. I was happy to trade. Queen takes b5 check, king g2, queen e8. Here I still have to be careful because if I play queen g7 I could lose with rook g8. Maybe not lose, but yeah, you're just losing the queen, so why would you do this? But of course I'm just playing h6 with the reason that after rook g8, knight to g5, and if my opponent would have gone for queen e7, I would just play rook h5, and next I'm playing h7, and that's it. I'm just going to play queen f4 and then take on f7 and win easily. So that's why knight c6, h7 anyway, rook h8, and here I played queen f3, attacking the knight on a3, attacking the pawn on f7, and this is where my opponent resigned, and I could not believe it. I just beat the international master rated 2458. It's not just an international master that got their title and lost their rating and is low rated now. No, this is a 2458 international master. This person could be going for a grandmaster title and is maybe already on a few norms, who knows? So I'm so happy. I cannot believe it. I mean, the fact that I was also out of prep on move 1. I did not prepare against the French whatsoever today. This is crazy. I'm so happy. But there's no time to celebrate because I have to stay focused and I have to do my best. I have to do well in the last 4 rounds because those last 4 rounds are going to be very important, and they're going to be they're going to decide everything. So fingers crossed. Let's hope I can keep up this whatever this is that happened today in this game. But for now, I'm so happy and I can't wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow the round starts early, so I'm not really looking forward to that. But let's get some rest, and I'll see you guys in the next one.